Hi, this is Angela with this week's Living the Shift. So, how full is your schedule? How many things do you have on your to-do list? We have gotten so frenetic in terms of how many things we try to fit into our lives every day. It's like we have decided, our egos and our minds have decided at some point that the more we have in our lives, the more important we are, the more worthy we are, the more somebody should look up to us because we have so much, right? So it's funny because there's a woman that I know who's a friend of mine also, and she's a client and a friend, and I've watched her develop and blossom over the past year, and she is changing direction completely, found what's going to make her heart sing. She's exploring that path. She's still putting all the pieces together, and yet she's never gotten rid of any of the other stuff that's on her list. She hasn't. So she had a full life before. Now she's adding more of this stuff into her life, and yet she hasn't let go of anything else. So she comes back to me and she says, okay, can we, number one, can we somehow set up so I have more energy? And number two, so that I have more time? And I said, okay, well, what's the problem? And she said, well, I'm having a great time exploring this and everything else, and I do feel more energized and more happy and everything else, except I can't get everything done on my list. And I said, well, have you gotten rid of anything? She said, well, no, because I still have to take care of all this. And I said, well, I said, yeah, number one, yeah, we could increase your energy. We could stretch time. That is a reality because time is man-made. We can step outside of time and stretch it. But that's not the answer. That's not the highest and best answer, is what I was hearing. So the key was, and I said, well, what is it that's on your to-do list that doesn't serve you anymore that you can get rid of? And there are things that you get rid of. There's always things that we have on our list to do that we've taken on as our own responsibilities, and we then feel like we're obligated to do it all the time, that nobody else can help us, that we're the only ones who can help us. And then somehow in the back of our minds, a lot of times we say, well, because if I have it on the list and I'm the only one who does it, it makes me valuable to other people in my life. So that's an ego thing. So what I said to her was, what's key is, what we need to do is look at what is not serving you in the highest and best way and get it off your list of things to do. And then guess what? Once you do that, your schedule's going to, it's going to space out, and then you're going to have more time to breathe because, of course, in the next breath, she's not meditating as much as she should. She's not, tapping in as much as she should. She is, but just not as much as she wants to because she has all these other things. And I said, okay, so if you get some stuff off your list, you have some space to actually enjoy the moment and to be in the moment and to really fully listen to your higher self and say, okay, this is what we need to do next. This is the next steps. Then, if we can do that, that's actually what's going to serve you in a much higher and better way. So it's funny because this is a common theme today. We have this so embedded in our society, in our cultures. How much can we do? How much can we fit into one 24-hour period? And the more we do, the more important we are. So, it's funny. That's very egoic, right? It's funny because I've come to learn the opposite. I've come to learn how important space is and being able to take, a breath and being able to listen to the silence, because the silence is where all the answers are. And this is what's really interesting. And it's hard to explain. It's challenging sometimes to explain if you haven't felt that or understood that yet. Because the mind and the ego wants to tell you, oh, no, we have all these things to do. We have all these things. There's no time for that. No time for that. How many times in your head, oh, I didn't have time to work out. I didn't have time to meditate. I didn't have time. I didn't have time. I didn't have time. I didn't have time. And what you're saying is I didn't have time for myself. What is most important is what is within us. What is how we're going to be the happiest, how we are going to be so in love with ourselves that, we're just going to spread our light and raise the vibration to everyone around us. And to do that, we have to be happy. We have to know what our soul's purpose is and to know what makes our heart sing, our own heart sing, instead of tending to everybody else's. So when I recently went out to the Pacific Northwest and spent some time in Mount Shasta, California, which is one of the major spiritual energy vortices of the world. And it was awesome because though I had experienced this before, I hadn't experienced it to such a beautifully amazing degree, where that community is on the whole overall very conscious, the entire community. So instead of a few people or a small community within the community, it was like the entire town had that level of consciousness. where I was there for a couple of hours. Within a couple of hours, it was like I remember sitting by a lake and I was talking to somebody who was showing me around, and all of a sudden I felt my cells just spread out. It was like I literally could feel the cells spread out, because all of a sudden I had conscious knowledge and consciousness of the space in between the cells, every single cell. And the consciousness was, this is the void, this is the everything, this is what connects all of us and everything around us. And I could feel in that space, I could feel the connection to everything. And it was amazing. It was, and I had felt that before, but not to such a huge degree. And I was able to maintain that the entire time I was there. And I've actually been able to maintain that most of the time since I've come back. And that's part of what we're working to do around the world, around the entire world, for all of us to be able to do that. Because when we can feel that space, when we can take the space and pay attention to it and listen to the void, listen to the quiet, that's where all the answers are. That's where the fullness really is. It's not in all the little thoughts. We've done all of these exercises in separation, and I can go into these, what somebody I know calls the spiritual technicalities of, the whole duality experience has been me and not me. Well, we're all me. We're all one. You and I are the same. We're all part of the same thing. And again, if you think about that, the space in between, that's what connects all of us, right? So I think, we've done the me, not me. We've done the gender role. We've done gender. We've done twins. We've done the Trinity with the divine child. We've split ourselves in so many different ways. We split our levels of consciousness. We have, then we manifest it into all of these segregations and separations and groupings. Whenever we have a grouping, any kind of segregation, any kind of what we call organization, or putting things into a cubby, that's actually separation, because that's saying that there are some who are this way and not that way. So it's me and not me, right? And so it's manifested now, because we're at this point of resolution, right? And you'd say, well, really, it seems to be worse than before, but many times we take polarity before we actually come together. That happens in science all the time. We go to polarities before we come together. And so we've gotten to this point of, we've manifest separation and segregation and cubbyholes and lists, right? Lists to the nth degree in our single lives, as well as our familial lives and community lives, that we have lost the space. We have completely almost blocked it all out, because we really wanted to get to that polarity, this extremeness of separation, right? So now the thought and the idea and the effort is for us to come back together, to find the wholeness and the oneness in all of us. So that's the living the shift part. The living the shift part is how to connect back into everything, connect back in consciously to the oneness, and let go of all the segregation and let go of all the separation. And in doing that, what the basic part is, to add space back into our lives, to add space back into our everyday, to take that list and say what really serves me and what doesn't, and to stop giving ourselves such high expectations of getting all of this stuff done. We are it's amazing if we step back and look at how manic we have become, frenetic we have become, in terms of how many things that we try to get done in our lives every day. But what that is, it's all busy work. It's all that busy work. If you ever see those squares of productivity, you see like what's important and urgent, right? And then the other corner is what's not important and not urgent. And then you sort of have like these other things. And it's like a matrix. How much in our lives is that not important, not urgent, but yet we put it in top priority, and we constantly are attending to that. And then what happens is, because the mind, the ego, doesn't want to look at the important or urgent things, because we're afraid, because we have that judgment, that criticism, that self-criticism, self-judgment within us. We don't want to look at it. We don't look in the mirror. So we tend to the stuff that's not important, not urgent, and make that more important, urgent in the mind, and we fill up our schedule so we don't say, I don't have time to do it. I don't have time to get to it, right? So then we never get to the important things. Well, what happens is this. When we can step back, and the funny thing about when I was out there at Mount Shasta that I loved was that because the entire community, it was so easy to just stay in that space all the time, that not only was it so much more relaxed, right, so much more laid back, and that I was able to just sort of do things totally on the moment, by the moment, know that what the next thing I was supposed to do at that moment. But I did much more in a day than I would have ever planned had I planned it out otherwise. Had I tried to done the busy work in the head and made lists and everything else, I would have not been able to fit everything in. But when I look back, I was like, wow, days are so full, and so yet so much space was in them, that I had so much insight, so much clarity, and so much healing that it was amazing. And I still yet got everything I wanted to get accomplished done. So that's really our goal. That's part of the goal in living the shift at this point is to get back to finding space in our lives so that we can make ourselves a priority again. Get over the ego's point of judgment and criticism, because it's saying, oh my God, we don't want to look at that. That's too scary. It's too, it's too uncomfortable. But here's the thing: when we look at it and bring it up to light many times, and once we can teach ourselves to stop looking at things with judgment, to look at it without judgment, then we can look at it, say, what was the lesson, process it, and release it. And when we do that, then we create even more space within us, because then we don't have all this stuff that's stuffed in there that we don't want to look at. It's sort of stuffed down and into the bag, saying, all right, this is the part where we don't want to look. So the first step is look at your life. Let's look at our lives and say, what can we get rid of? What can we streamline? Where can I shift things around and make myself the priority? Meditation is making yourself the priority. Doing working out, making your body feel good, connecting your body, mind, and spirit. Anything that's going to connect your body, mind, and spirit, that is allowing space into your self, into your reality. And even if you sit on a park bench and just breathe and connect with nature for 15 minutes every day, that's adding space. So that's the consideration for this week. Where you can find space in your life so that you can actually you can end up doing more that does serve you in the highest and best way. Now on that, I'm going to let you go. This is Angela with Living the Shift.